In this video, we're going to talk all about protein. So why is protein so important? Number one is it's the major component of all of our muscles, and it's also a major component in bone. We need it for a lot of things in our body. So protein is for structure, mainly. We don't use much of it for energy. So again, bone, muscle, our red blood cells are largely made up out of protein. Enzymes in our body, there's tons of different things in our body that require proteins. And so if we don't have enough protein in our diet, one, we're going to lose muscle, but two, we won't have all of the constituents that we need for our body to build and to work and function in the way that we want it to. And so what are kind of the general recommendations for protein? So what the preponderance of evidence would suggest is that if we split our protein up through about 3 to 5 meals with a few snacks sprinkled in, we get about 30 to 40 grams of protein per time we eat. And we eat a mix of plant and animal proteins. That seems to work best. And then we focus on whole food sources, right? Are we getting it from relatively unprocessed animal and plant sources? So let's dive a little bit deeper into some of the things about protein, and we'll talk a little bit more specifically about plant proteins later. So number one, protein timing. That's a question people often have. You know, when do I need to take protein? Should I first thing when I wake up, or right after I do a workout? And for a long time, we thought that you needed to have, there's this smaller timing window, right? What we call an anabolic window. And people thought that within 30 minutes or an hour of exercise, you should probably get in quite a bit of protein. We now know that window is a lot larger. So protein synthesis stays elevated for about a day after we work out. And so the need to eat protein immediately isn't quite as pressing as we thought it was. Two, because we always have some food in our digestive system, we likely are digesting some protein, and so that can contribute to our needs. And so unless we're like totally fasted for a long period of time, we've probably got some circulating amino acids that can add to our body's needs for building. So, but if we eat within a couple hours of a workout, we're probably doing pretty good. And again, if we're respecting that kind of 3 to 5 meals a day with a couple of snacks, then we'll probably be good. And so timing doesn't seem to be as much of an issue. There's some studies that suggest that casein, which is a slower digesting protein, so it's one of the 2 main proteins found in milk. A dose of that before bedtime can help keep protein synthesis elevated. But some people find eating too close to bed disrupts their sleep, and so we don't want to impact recovery as a part of that protein timing. And so it's kind of individual there. Two, protein quality. So again, focus on getting mostly whole food sources of protein. The way that proteins are structured in animals and in plants seem to be the best for what our body needs. And there's a few caveats that I'll talk a little bit later on that with. If we're supplementing, whey seems to be the best for supplementing. It's very easily used by our body, and it elevates protein synthesis quite well. Also, you'll see a lot of protein powders that are a kind of whey casein blend, but focusing on whey if we're going to supplement. Again, there's a caveat for that with plant protein, but I'll discuss that a little bit more when I talk about plants. Now, protein dose. How much do we want per day? So current recommended daily allowance set by the USDA is 0.8 grams per kilogram. But we find that isn't enough for most individuals, especially older adults tend to have a higher need, and anyone that's active or growing has a higher need of protein. And so what the research suggests is about 1.6 grams per kilogram of body weight. And so if we go with those recommendations that I talked about earlier, right, 3 to 5 mils with 30 to 40 grams of protein each, we'll end up meeting that just fine. And there doesn't seem to be a problem with even very high doses of protein, given that someone doesn't have kidney issues. So for most people, like high amounts of protein, even up to like 4 grams per kilogram, which is a ton, doesn't seem to have any ill effects. But it tends to be a law of diminishing returns after about 1.6 grams per kilogram. So again, getting 30 to 40 grams of protein per meal tends to do good for most people. Let's talk branched chain amino acids, because that's pretty popular, right? You'll see a lot of those supplements out there. And really, they tend to be pretty worthless. The reason being is that the branched chain amino acids, they compete for the transporters that bring them into cells. And so you might not even be getting as much of those into your cells as you want. And two, we need all of the amino acids to build proteins. So there's 20 different ones. There's 9 essential amino acids. Those are meaning our body can't produce those. We have to get those from our diet. And so we're much better off if we want to have enough protein, if we want to build muscle, and we want to have enough protein for all the other processes in our body. It makes much more sense to just do whole proteins, right? Or if we're going to supplement with a blend of the essential amino acids. But again, we're going to be better off using whole sources. Again, whey is a complete protein, soy is a complete protein. And so really your money is better spent elsewhere. Because again, we need all of the bricks to build a wall, and if we're missing any, we're not going to be able to complete the wall. And that's the problem with branched chain amino acids, is that they don't give us all of the essential amino acids. And I guess if you want to use them to help make yourself a little more full, you can do that. But again, you're going to be better off spending your money elsewhere. So last, let's talk plant proteins. So, there's been back and forth for years about, animal proteins are way better and you can't get enough protein on a plant-based diet. And while some things need to change to get enough protein with a plant-based diet, we absolutely can. So one of the issues is that a lot of plants aren't a complete protein, and there's lower amounts of protein in the amount per serving. Two, it's a little bit less bioavailable. What I mean by that is it's harder with plants, it's a little bit more difficult for your body to access the protein that's in there because of some of the things that plants have in them. Three, and this goes back to the amount in each one, you tend to have to eat a lot of them to get enough. And so ways around that are, one, just eating a variety of plants, right? Not just focusing on I'm going to eat this one plant, but eating a variety of plants, beans, legumes, things like that, so that you get a mixture of the different proteins so that altogether you have enough of the correct amino acids. Two, things like cutting or cooking or sprouting, germinating, things like that with plant-based sources makes them easier to access by our body. And so we can do that. Also, sometimes supplementation with like a plant-based supplement is needed, especially for older adults where the protein needs are a little bit higher and it takes a little bit more protein per meal to maximally stimulate the body to build muscle. Supplementing with a plant-based protein can help. And there's a lot of those that are available, right? There's hemp protein, there's potato protein, there's rice protein, pea protein, and all sorts of different blends. And so if we do those different things, right, we get a variety of plants, we perhaps supplement with a plant-based protein, and we do things to make the protein in plants more easily available to our bodies, then we end up being just fine. But again, getting enough protein is so important for our body, having enough muscle and having that structure that it needs. So we've talked before in videos about how the rate of falls after the age of 65 goes up exponentially. And a lot of this is due to the loss of muscle mass. So we lose muscle mass at a rate of about 1% to 2% per year after the age of some say 30, some say about 40. But if we're not intervening to build muscle, we're losing that at a rate about 1% to 2% per year. We lose strength double that, so 2% to 4% of our strength per year, and power double that, so about 8% of our power per year if we're not doing anything to intervene. So power is the ability to use our strength quickly. And so that can be the difference between a catastrophic fall and not. And so having enough protein is so important. It's also, we store in our muscles fat, and we store sugar, right, for energy. And so muscle is actually a great way to help regulate our blood sugar, right? We can store a lot of sugar in our muscles in the form of glycogen. And so just having enough muscle, having enough protein is so important for so many different things. So hope this helps. It gives you a good primer on protein. And as always, let us know if you have any questions, what that looks like for you and your diet and your lifestyle, so we can help you dial that in.